Welcome to this episode of Cappuccinos and Curriculum.
Hello. I am going to be talking about lesson planning for the distance learning setting, the virtual setting, all those things right now. So I am going to take you through my process that I've been doing for this, and we will learn all about lesson planning. So the first thing I did for lesson planning was making my schedules. I don't know about you, but as a low incidence teacher, I feel like my schedule probably changes a million times before the end of the school year. So I always like to start with a good solid foundational schedule that then can be easily manipulated throughout the year. So when I was making my schedules this year, I obviously consulted IEPs. That's a huge thing. I looked at our master schedule, and this year, the grade level schedule that I am following for my classroom in terms of related arts and lunch and recess and morning meetings is fourth grade, so I used that. And then I really took parent input into consideration because, I need to know how long the students were able to sit to do distance learning in the spring. I needed to know how long they could sit by themselves. Did they need the adult to be present? And if so, when were the parents able to do that? And then I also got some general education teacher input. So I took all of that information and I was able to figure out how much time my students were able to do synchronous learning, how much time they were going to do asynchronous learning, and I was able to make my specific teaching schedule. I was able to make schedules for my paras. This year I only have 2 paras, so I only had to make 2 para schedules. That was nice. And I made each student a schedule. And again, my caseload this year so far is only 4 kids, so it was a total of 7 schedules that I was making. And so I will show you some example schedules of what I did. So I can't show you the exact schedules just because there are names on it and to keep privacy and everything. But I have some example schedules that I can show you. So I did my schedule. Ooh, why is it so blurry? Let me see if I can find a much better picture to share with you. So my schedule, I really looked at that I wanted to be able to work with all of the students at one time for a whole group for SEL things like we would do in the classroom as a morning meeting. So I start every day off as a morning meeting. And you can see there's this board behind me, which on the other side, I can flip it around, is our calendar. And so we do like calendar and things like that during our morning meeting. And then I wanted to meet, since I only have 4 students, I really wanted to meet with each student every single day, one-to-one, because that is not something that I often get to do in the in-person setting because there's so many other things going on. So I really wanted to make sure I could do that in the virtual setting because I am very lucky. I only have those 4 students, so I was able to do that. And then in terms of my paras, I have one of my paras is a one-to-one. So whenever their one-to-one student is on, whether it's me one-to-one with that student, they're on those live lessons. He also goes to related arts with that student and morning meeting with that student. And then my other para, she runs a small group where they're doing a scripted program from Studies Weekly for science and social studies. So my students are getting some direct science and social studies instruction from the para. So then in terms of my sample schedules for me, this is much, much clearer. You can see that I attend a morning meeting with the 4th grade first thing, then I have my whole group, and then you see there's 4 spots there for that say IEP, and that's my one-on-one time with my students. When the students have related arts and lunch, that is time for me to plan asynchronous lessons and do things that I need to do and to eat my lunch. And then I also have planning. On Monday, I plan with the other low incidence teacher at the school, and on Tuesdays, I plan with 4th grade. So all of the red times are times that I'm not available to help and work with parents. And then from 1 to 3, the end of the day, I have office hours. I can do IEP meetings if they don't fit in during that 12 to 1 time. And that's time I am available to work with the parents if they need that. And then you'll see a sample para schedule. So this schedule has the para on live with me, going to related arts, and doing a check-in, check-out. So my check-in, check-out system has the pairs checking in on Monday, seeing how things are going, and then checking out again on Friday to see how the week went. And then you can see I made student schedules. So for this particular student, and this is just an example, the schedules have already changed twice, I believe. This student has a morning meeting with the gen ed class, a whole group with me, a one-to-one with me, related arts, and then their check-in, check-out. What this schedule is missing, and one of the reasons why it's changed, is because I now have their related services in there. So their speech and their OT, and if they have PT, that's listed in there. I also have that small group I was talking about, that's in there. So I made those schedules because it was easier for the parents, and then all the students got sent home a visual schedule that has everything they need for their distance learning. So we do Teach Town. Our platform is Schoology, and they have to log into Schoology in order to be counted as present for attendance. They do Teach Town Basics. You see, we also have the program iReady. We have Lexia Core as another program, and then I use Boom Cards. So all of the things throughout the day that they have are on here. And there's also options for their speech, their PT, their OT, and free choice for the parents to put in when they want to do that for their students. So this got sent home for the students, as well as a copy of the schedule that you saw. So the parents have the schedule with the times and the days, with all of the therapies and everything in there too, and then they can set up their visual schedules for their students. And I did walk my parents through how to use this. I recorded a video and uploaded it to my Google site, and it went through everything that I sent home for the students, as well as how to set up the schedule. So then lesson planning for my whole group, I really wanted to, like I said, do kind of some SEL. So I'm going to show you my board and to do just some basic skills with the students. So on the back of my board here is the calendar setup. Uh-oh. There we go. Okay. So it's the calendar setup, and then in that bin of stuff I sent home, I also sent these calendar mats. This is an awesome resource from Miss D's Corner, Mrs. D's Corner. She has this whole big calendar thing. There are tons of different options. I chose these options, which I'll talk about in a second. And I set this up here. I printed these out at like 75% of the size so that they'd be super small to fit on here. And then also my students have this mat with them, so they don't need to have this big. But when I'm actually in person in the classroom, it's a bit bigger. We're just kind of, you know, limited in our choices for distance learning. So anyway, we go through this calendar every day. We talk about yesterday, today, and tomorrow and what they'll be. And I have the little pieces that I just hold up for the students. So tomorrow I'll be like, oh, tomorrow is Tuesday. And I hold it up for them. So then they can circle Tuesday on their calendar mat. Or if they don't have a whiteboard marker, or if the whiteboard marker isn't working anymore, they can just touch Tuesday and hold it up. I have one student that does that. We go through the days of the week. We talk about how many days we've been in school, so we practice counting one more. So I'll say tomorrow, for example, I'll say yesterday we were in school for 9 days. How many today? What's one more from 9? So we get some math practice in there. We have the months. They can point to the months on there. And then for our life skills, we talk about weather, season, temperature. And sometimes we'll talk about, you know, what kind of clothes can we wear in summer? Do we need to be wearing long sleeve jackets and things like that? So that covers our calendar. And then we go through and count to figure out what day of the month it is. And we go through and you can see I have these little pieces on here that say the first day of school. And then the way my district did, they had 2 days of school. They had a no school day, and then they had 1 day for their first week. And then this past week was the first full week of school, and it was all distance remote learning. And then we've got another week. They have us planned right now to do virtual teaching until Labor Day, and they're going to make a decision sometime this week as to what's going to happen moving forward. So that's what we start with every day. We start with the calendar, and we do a hello song for that social emotional. So I love, love the Singing Walrus on YouTube. And so we sing the hello, 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 hello song every morning, and then we say hello and goodbye to everyone on the call. Then I do a phonics program. I use Deanna Jump's phonics program because the district did not provide one for me. So it's a phonological awareness daily program from Deanna Jump. It's an awesome resource. And so we go through this. She has it set up where you do letters and sounds, onsets and rhymes, blending, rhyming, and oral language. So, for example, today we reviewed all the letters we learned last week and learned a new letter. We're blending together compound words and onsets and rhymes. We're doing rhyming words. That one's a little tough for my kids, so we're still working on that. And then we're determining, the first week we were looking at, is it a sentence, is it a letter or a word? And now we're looking at, is it a word or a sentence? So that's the phonics program I use. And we also listen to Phonics Song 2 new version from Kids TV. And my students love, love, love that song. So we do that. Then we do an interactive read aloud. And last week we read Pete the Cat, I Love My White Shoes, so we could work on colors. And this week we're working on sequencing by reading There Was an Old Lady Who Swallowed Some Books. And the kids love this one. We read this today and they were just like, what? It was great. So they love doing our interactive read alouds. So I'll ask them questions as we go throughout, and tomorrow we're going to do a quick retell and see if they remember what the old lady swallowed. So it's a very modified interactive read aloud that I do. We finish up our academic portion with a number talk. Last week we did counting, so I had counting task cards, or I used mini erasers. I jumped on the mini eraser train, and we were counting mini erasers and just counting up through to 10. That's where we were as the whole group. Some students are counting up to 12, sometimes 20. Some students are counting up to 20, and some students are still only working on 1 to 10. So in the whole group, we only did 1 to 10. And then this week for number talk, we're doing colors. I'm still using the mini erasers. I just had them tell me what color the star was, because last week we did Pete the Cat and we were working on colors. And then finally, since they have those visual schedules, I end every morning meeting with check schedule so they can know what they are doing next for their schedule. So that is my big whole group sessions that I do. So then the other two things I have to lesson plan for are my one-to-ones with my students and my asynchronous teaching time, what I'm planning for my students to be doing during that asynchronous teaching time. So for my one-to-one sessions, I'm looking at what IEP goals can be accomplished in the virtual setting. So we had to do this. I talked about last week that we made CLIPS, or continuous learning individualized plan. And there are certain goals that I just can't take data on or really help with over the virtual setting. And one of those is toileting. So I've given tons of toileting resources and potty training resources, but when it comes down to it, the parents have to be the ones who implement that, and I can't necessarily take data on that. So I looked at what goals can I work on in the virtual setting. And so I can do things like staying in one area. So do they get up and move out of the area? I can do things like taking a task and working on it till completion, and obviously academic goals. So then I provided links, like I said, and videos and different things for the adaptive and the pre-vocational skills. And I am working on one goal a day, and I'm using the Osmo reflector. I am obsessed with this. It turns your iPad into basically a document camera. And so I can do tons of different things with the students, and I can take my data with the students right then and there. And it's been really awesome. One of the favorite things my kids love are these mini erasers that are stackable. So these are so versatile. There's so many things you can do. So we do these on the day that the OT comes and co-treats, because they have to work on pushing them together and pulling them apart. So it's working on some of their fine motor skills. So some of my students, for example, they're working on counting. So I'll pull out a bunch, put them in the document camera space, have them count them on the screen. Then they count them again as they pull them out of their bucket, because I sent these home as well. And then they push them all together so they can count them as they're pushing them together. And then when they pull them apart, they can count them when they're pulling apart. So these really cover, I really like them for counting and for fine motor skills. And they also work for color. So I could say find 2 green of the erasers and put them together. So that's one of the goals that I work on virtually. I also do coins and counting. So on the other side of this you saw was my math board. So we have counting, colors, shapes, coins. We made an anchor chart for counting strategies. It's really, really tiny, but it works for virtual teaching. We've also done an anchor chart for coins, and I can work on identifying coins because I can pull out an actual coin and ask them, what coin is this? We're also working on addition and subtraction, so there are anchor charts for those that just fit up right here for the students that were working on them. So today we were just doing counting. That's why these anchor charts were not up here. But I can work on coins. I do a lot of addition and subtraction. So again, mini erasers. I'm obsessed with the mini erasers. So what I might do is in the document camera space, or if you don't have a document camera, you could hold them up and I'll say, okay, I have 5 mini erasers and 2 mini erasers, 5 plus 2, and we can do addition that way. Same thing with subtraction. You can put out your 5 mini erasers, 2 mini erasers go away. How many are left? Boom cards are really great for asynchronous and also synchronous lessons. If you are one of the lucky people who doesn't have to use Microsoft Teams, you can, like in Zoom, I know you can give access to the other person so they can click on the computer screen and really actually do the boom cards with you right there. But I have to use Microsoft Teams, so I don't have that option. So I've been using these task cards with my Osmo reflector, but again, you could easily just hold them up into the camera with your kids. So this is working on answering WH questions. So this one has picture cues for the kids. I don't know if you can see them. So for example, I'd read the sentence, the itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout, and then I'd ask them who, and they would have to tell me the itsy bitsy spider, and if they need even more help, I can show them the pictures and then ask what the spider did, went up the water spout, and then I can, whoops, if I do it right, and then I can put those on here for them. And I have these for 3 different nursery rhymes that we're working on this first couple of weeks. We're doing the Itsy Bitsy Spider, Humpty Dumpty, and Little Miss Muffet. So we're working on those as one of the goals, WH questions and retelling stories, because some of these are asking first and then. And then one other thing that I like are these Melissa and Doug's spelling boards. I think I got these at Toys R Us when they were going out of business, but you can find Melissa and Doug in a lot of places. But it has like the letters that go with it. So again, you could hold this up in the camera screen, but I use that Osmo document camera to really help me out, and I definitely recommend it. And so I'll just have them say, okay, what letter is that? What sound does it make? And then I'll find it and we'll spell out the word. We'll sound out the different parts and then we'll put it together. And then there's some other things that I do. So they've got paper and crayons at home so they can practice writing their name and different skills like that. But when it came to the one-to-one time, I really looked at what skills can be done virtually, and then I can take data on that, and I just note in my data collection notes that it was done through the virtual setting. And then in terms of asynchronous, I kind of touched on this when I was showing you the schedule, but we use iReady for our math asynchronous platform, Lexia Core 5 for a reading platform, and then I am having my students do TeachTown because I have licenses to TeachTown Basics, and then also the Boom Learning Deck. So if you don't know anything about Boom Learning, definitely Google it. It is awesome. I pay for a yearly membership so I can get the data from the kids. You don't have to do that if you don't want to take data. You can do like what's called a free play, and this you can just give the students the option to do the free play. But I really wanted that data when it came to progress report time. So I can assign different decks for the students to do each week. I can find or make ones that are related to their IEP goals. So right now I have a couple of students working on addition and subtraction 1 through 10. I have another student working on a counting one, another student working on a WH one. And so they work through those boom decks, and then it spits out all the data for me. It tells me how long they spent on the actual deck, how long they spent per card, how many they got right, what their accuracy rate was, things like that. So it's really great for progress reports. But again, I just kind of note that it was done virtually because there's no way to know is the student doing it independently, is the parent helping. So I just like to put that on there. But anyway, that is what I've been doing for my lesson planning for distance learning. My lesson planning template can show you. So I'm going to block out the student's name. But the template I've been using has objectives, IEP goals, materials, activity, and then they're asynchronous. And so I just look, you can see I can count to 20. The goal is counting. We're using mini erasers. Count out X erasers, stack them together, take them apart, and then her asynchronous is the boom cards, the iReady, and LexiaCore. And this goes through, you can see I do one distinct IEP goal a day with this specific student. And it just that's all I do for my lesson plans, and I only do this because I have to turn them in. Otherwise, I kind of know what I'm doing, so I would just write my old lesson plans I just wrote before they decided we had to turn them in. I would just write the student's name, so I'll use my name Sabrina, and then I put Monday counting, Tuesday addition, Wednesday subtraction, Thursday sight words, Friday spelling name, and that's all I put for my notes for my lesson plans, because for me I know what that is, and then I have everything over right next to me, because I talked about last week how it's so important to have everything right within your view so you don't have to leave the screen to get to the materials, so you're always in front of the student. But now that I have to turn them in, I have to make them a little fancier. But anyway, that is kind of my process for lesson planning. I wanted to share that with you guys. And then if you're curious about checking boom decks, there's a link in the description for this video that will take you to get access to a free boom card deck. It is the pre-primer sight words, and it's having the students read them. And there is an audio on it, so if they don't know how to read it, they can press the audio, and then it'll tell them how to read it, and they can read it. And then there's also a link to get you information on the SPED Teacher Institute that I offer. It covers a variety of things like classroom setup, IEPs and services, working with related service providers, behavior management, data collection, and then a whole section on virtual teaching as well. And so I just want to put that on there in case you're interested in checking that out. But next week's topic is all about behavior management in the virtual setting. So I will be talking about behavior management and behavior strategies and what I'm doing to keep my students engaged. So I hope you come and check that out next Monday.